Hello everyone, this is Coach Sandra, and thank you again for tuning in to another YouTube video. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel here, please do by clicking the red button. That would really help spread our message. And if you're not following us on Instagram and Facebook, please do at the same name of Journey to Authentic Living. So for today's episode, we are outside again. It's a beautiful day, and I'm in between sessions right now, and I thought, this would be a good opportunity to answer a question that a client of mine had, and I'm allowed to give her name. So Lynn from Ohio, thank you very much. Lynn is a 32-year-old professional, and she's got a few kids, and she's married, and she asked a question that has been actually on her mind for some time, and she invited me to expand and then maybe even create a video to see if perhaps any of you could glean some benefit from this discussion. And what it's going to be about, and I'll let that plane go by. Lynn finds herself feeling a little frazzled before our sessions. It's not anything that I'm doing as a facilitator, but she's noticing within herself, because we are also doing some mindfulness practices within her sessions, and she's noticing that she finds herself feeling frazzled, as she described it, and she wants to know how to better prepare for a session. So time management, right, is always a big thing. Work-life balance, how do we do that? So I'll just give you some tips here, and some of you may already be doing this. Some of you might even have some greater tips. There's not a right or wrong. It's just an experience that I'm going to share. And I'm not only a coach or a facilitator, right? I'm also a client. And I've been a client before, so I know some of the experiences I've had for preparing for a session haven't always been perfect, right? So as a client, my suggestion would be that once you know what coach you want to work with and you're collaborating with, or a facilitator for that matter, it's really important before a session, especially if it's an hourly session, to perhaps dedicate at least 10 minutes prior to the session. Get a notebook, maybe a pen, a glass of water to keep hydrated. Sometimes emotions come up and we find ourselves feeling a little dehydrated. So it's always good to clear that space that you decide you're going to receive that session or that telephone conversation in. So, if it's cluttered, you probably, if that drives you crazy, you might just want to clear out that space and just take 10 minutes to decompress from what was happening, the activities prior to your session, and just begin to really take some deep breaths and try to relax. Think about, for example, if it's a coaching session and it's appropriate during the coaching session to have a takeaway, then come prepared for that takeaway, right? Because we know that true coaching is about having some idea of where you want your session to go. The coach doesn't know that, right? And a takeaway could be an insight, it could be a breakthrough, it could be just a different perspective on something. It doesn't have to necessarily be a huge celebration or parade or what have you, right? Usually the small changes are what you're going to see the difference in your life and make the deepest transformations. But yeah, you're looking for something like this, inspiration, an aha moment, a shift in perspective. This could be a takeaway that you may have. And a good coach and facilitator, they're never going to give you advice. They're never going to tell you what to do. They're there to guide you. We're here to guide you as a facilitator. So my suggestion is that if you are also living with other people, to make them aware that you are going to be entering an hour session and that this is your time in investing in yourself and your personal development, and that you need to carve out, this amount of time. If you have children, please do get a babysitter, and of course if they're older, you can just tell them the same thing, mom, dad is going to be in a session, and so please do not interrupt me unless it's an actual emergency. You want your telephones turned off, and again, you want your space to be as less distracting as possible so that you could really show up for the session, right? The synergy that occurs between a facilitator and a coachee, client, is that's where the magic happens, right? That's where the transformation really happens. If one or the other individual is not really centered or balanced and focused and present and ready for the session, then that can really redirect the session in not such a positive way, right? So again, it's just preparing yourself maybe about 10 minutes before as a client, right? And then as a facilitator, that's actually not much different. For example, for myself, I make sure I'm hydrated. I make sure I've gone to the loo before my session or in between sessions, because I certainly don't want to be interrupting. I want to be focused and present with my client, right? I do my breathing exercises. I give myself ample time between clients, because I certainly don't want to be dragging in any kind of leftover thoughts or anything like that. If I need to write something down from a previous session, I want ample time to be able to write those notes down, and then give myself time to just disconnect, right? Another thing too that I actually do is make sure that I have healthy snacks. So I might have an apple or half an apple, maybe a little bit of protein, maybe a little bit of cheese, or I love eating pecans and walnuts and almonds. I don't do trail mixes and things like that. I make my own because I don't like the carbohydrates and the sugars that sometimes this trail mix may have, but that's just me. And so I might have, I don't know, maybe some electrolyte drink even. I might just put a little bit of powder or something like this to just keep myself going, because sometimes I do have sort of back-to-back clients. And so I need to make sure that I'm the best for me so that I can be the best for my client. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it. I think I've covered pretty much of what preparing yourself would look like. Now I'll go into a couple of experiences as a client. And that has been, I've actually experienced in a session where a facilitator actually was not really prepared, and she had children as well, and she did have a babysitter, but felt compelled to to answer her child's question or whatever. And this wasn't a really super young child. And I remember just sort of nicely, telling her that I felt it was inappropriate. Luckily, she apologized, and then she was able to add on an extra 10 minutes. Now, I want to go into the nitty-gritty of something. Is it the end of the world to interrupt a session? It's not the end of the world. What happens, though, as a client or facilitator, when we are too distracted, we do interrupt the flow of what's happening. We have to be aware that we could be even thwarting an aha moment, when we allow ourselves to be distracted as a coach or as a coachee. Again, I'm just using client and coachee interchangeably here, or facilitator or therapist or whatever. When you're really distracted, it really does thwart the session. So it's not about trying to be OCD about this. It's just that we want to go in with the session fully prepared. Lynn also noticed that I sort of call this space that I create before each of my sessions, so to speak, or if I know I have quite a few sessions going on, what I do is I create what I call a sacred space. So I know that I'm going to be working at a designated area, which I usually do, and I just have the certain lighting that I need. I have, again, my water, my snacks, all of these things to prepare myself for these sessions for my clients. Another thing that I've experienced as a facilitator, switching back from being a client to then a facilitator, is that something that I put within my agreement, because I have my clients sign an actual agreement before they begin their work with me. It's important to be punctual. You know, if your session, whatever time that is, it's really important as a client to be on time. Now, things do happen. I know life happens and so forth. But again, the question would be is, are you distracted? You know, this is a time that you're not just investing with your money, but you're investing in your personal development and your transformation. And it's not up to the facilitator to, you know, babysit you and your time. You know, we are here to guide you and to help direct you and perhaps make suggestions and make you accountable. We are accountability partners, but you as a client are solely responsible for your actions, your decision making, right? It's not up to us to be babysitting. And I've had it where clients actually have been late. One time is okay, or perhaps there is a no-show, which just means that they didn't show up and there was no warning or anything like that. And so that's forgivable, right? But if it continues to happen regularly, then as a coach, we need to go back in there and try to figure out what is going on. What are the hindrances that you as a client have? And then, of course, if we're unable to come to some agreement on how to move forward, then at that point, one can choose to terminate the collaborative relationship. Okay, so these are just a few tips how to prepare for a session, and I hope they've been helpful for you. I hope I didn't drone on and on too much about other things, because it's kind of a spontaneous video. But if you have any more questions, please do feel free to ask. If you'd like me to expand more on this, please do. And again, Lynn from Ohio, thank you so much. And I look forward to our next session and hearing about what kind of changes you've made to prepare yourself for our session or any session moving forward, okay? So anyways, encouraging all of you to live authentically and bring joy into your life. Love yourself, accept yourself. Take care.